everybody. Terry Brown, all bass, no bull. And I tell you what, this is going to be a fun one for me. About 20 some years ago, I met this young man named Will Davis, and he was, I think, 10. But I knew his dad prior, William. And William and Will are just diehard bass fishermen. William, of course, has Davis Bait Company, which is an outstanding bait company, and they make some of the best jigs in the world, and all kinds of other things as well. But this is going to be a father-son deal, and I know that probably William, that's the dad, he's probably in a position where he's about to bust his shirt buttons out because his son is doing so well. I looked at some of the stats. Um, he won Federation tournament back to back. He has been to the Classic a few times and has won an Elite Series event. So we're going to talk about the dad and the son relationship, of course. And I'd like to welcome him in here. William and Will, are you there?
We're here.
We're
Yes,
here, sir.
there they are. Well, it's funny because we were at, I think it was Birmingham. You and I were trying to remember, William, where we were at, but I think it was an FLW Cup. And this little guy come walking up. And you told me one day, he said, he's going to be a stud because he can catch them, right? And that was way back then.
It's
And
been a while.
yeah, but then it kind of came to fruition because now look at what he's doing. He's just out there hammering on them. And, you always look in the top tens and you'll always see his name for the most part. So, welcome to the program. And William, I guess first thing is Davis Bait Company has been around how long?
47 years, Terry.
Wow. So you got about a 3 year anniversary coming up. It'll be 50 years of you doing what you do. And it's a pretty neat deal. How did you get started in the bait business?
I was fishing a lot of local tournaments in my teenage years and really couldn't find the lures like I wanted to fish with. And that's kind of the whole deal there. We started developing some lures and actually had a couple of more companies trying to help us. And you know, we really couldn't get the quality like we wanted, Terry. So we just decided we'd step out there and do it on our own. So that's kind of what the gist of it is.
Well, 47 years, that means you got staying power. And that means also that people like what you do. And I think it's important that we note here is that, when, when somebody gets involved with Davis, it seems like they come back, don't they? They're always there. They know the quality. They know what you're doing and excited about what's going to be next with Davis Bait Company.
Yes, sir. We have come out with a bunch of lures over the years, and really what got us in the business was we're the original shaky head and shaky worm people. So um, and we still make the same stuff that we made 47 years ago, and we've also innovated it some and got some new shaky heads and some drop shot worms for Will Jr. and he's helped us develop a lot of that new stuff.
Well, wasn't it the shaky fish? Wasn't there something like that? On my memory, I'm trying to, I'm old, so it's hard for me to remember stuff, but it wasn't the shaky fish one of your creations?
The shaky fish was a joint venture with Aaron Martins. Actually, a gentleman in California developed a lure that was called a scrounger, and we just kind of revamped it. And he designed it for salt water, and we revamped it. And Aaron and I um, basically just retooled everything and started making one for freshwater, and that's kind of become a staple in our product line. Will Jr. is he won a bunch of money on it, so that's kind of what's got that back going, and it's just a very unique product, also.
Well, let's talk about the father son relationship. Of course, back when he was about 10, I think that's when you said that we were at the Last Supper together. That's when we met.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
sir.
it's we you knew then what he was going to turn into. You knew it then, and I think the thing of it is you having the abilities you had and the fish catching abilities and stuff kind of translated to Will, and I'm sure Will can probably talk about that better than I can. But having a dad that was eaten up with fishing like you are probably didn't hurt him a bit, did it?
I think it was a blessing that he chose to do what he's doing now for a living. Kind of upset because back when you and I first met, he had just set a world record in shotgun competition and skeet shooting. He was the youngest ever at 10 years old to run a hundred straight. And, you know, we thought he was going to shoot in the Olympics, and we got him to where he was able to do that. And he came to me one day, and he decided that that's not what he wanted to do. He was kind of burned out on that, and I was really heartbroken because I had put my all into it, and we were fishing some back then too, Terry. But um, his mama said you shouldn't be upset because all he wants to do is be like his dad. So that kind of brought me back down and got me focused, and we made a monster now. So
Yeah, well, there's no doubt. Hey, well, it's one of those things where, having a dad like you have, and one of the salt of the earth people that I mean, I've got a lot of friends in the industry, but none better than your dad. And you've got a stellar career already. I mean, you've done so many things. A federation winning it back to back had to have been pretty cool for you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, very blessed to be in the position that I'm in right now. Growing up in the sport, going to the classics, and watching all the guys in the Elite Series, and I thought, heck, I want to do that one day. And more so, I want to just fish the classic. I really didn't realize once you fish the classic one time, you don't ever want to miss it again. So that's what you strive to do every year. From the first Elite Series event, is your first cast. You want to make it, you know, the best that you can the whole year to make that Bassmaster Classic. And you know, I think I'm on par to make my fourth in a row. So I'm very blessed about that.
Well, let's talk about goal setting a little bit. Once you make the classic, I'm sure that was a major goal, but now you want to make it every year. How about angler of the year? What are some of your goals you have as a tournament angler?
The Classic is uh, is the ultimate tournament to win. They can say what they want to, but there's no tournament out there in the history of bass fishing as a whole like the Classic, and
Mhm.
that's the prestigious trophy that everybody wants to win. I mean, nobody can ever take that away from you. Winning a tournament's always special. Don't get me wrong, but there's nothing that compares to the Classic, and that's I want to win the Classic, and I want to win Angler of the Year. I've kind of slipped up. I've had two, actually three mediocre tournaments this year where I placed in the 40s. And realistically, you can't do that. You got to have one of them years that nothing goes wrong. I've had a few slip ups, so that's the Classic in the Angler Year. That's definitely what I want to do before my journey is through.
Well, you're young enough that you've probably got one of those on the radar screen. If you talk about the techniques and stuff that you like, because you're from Alabama, there's a lot of things people talk about. Shaky head, number one, but you also talk about flipping and pitching. Talk about maybe throwing a big top water. Some of those kind of things. What are the things you feel are your strengths?
I grew up fishing a lot of current. We really didn't fish a lot of tail races back in the day. We just, we'd fish up our some, but not, like we did the past 10 years. And so I was always, current driven because my dad with his big spinner baits and, jigs and stuff like that. And, the current on Lay Lake, it's pretty hectic sometimes. So mostly all the time there's always flow, and it being 10 minutes from the house, that's just what I grew up in. So I'd say that's my number one strength. But being for a professional bass angler, it's really crucial to be good at everything, not just one technique. Because these guys are so good now, especially with the forward facing sonar and all that stuff. You gotta get out of your comfort zone when you're at home instead of on the trail, um, to learn new baits, new techniques, and stuff. You can't never, I guess, know it all, and you can't get comfortable. doing what you do, what you're most comfortable at. You got to build up that confidence in doing something else, because that's what's really going to shine on your next, throughout your career when you go to places that don't sit up with current. You better know how to fish docks. You better know how to do everything. So, uh, yeah, you better have all the strengths dialed in.
Well, consistency on that trail, Elite Series, Bassmaster Elite Series, that's really the telltale thing. If you can be consistent and be in that top group all the time, I kind of kidded about it earlier. I look at your top tens and where you've been and how many wins and all those kind of things. But that consistency, that means you have to be versatile, doesn't it?
You have to be. And of course, you're going to have bad tournaments where you can't control it. You know, you get a bad boat draw, you lose a big fish. And, all you can do is just put 100% in it and go to bed at night knowing that you've done everything. That's my biggest worry, is leaving something on the table and not getting it off of there. I don't leave no stone unturned, if you know what I mean.
I do. I've watched you in many events, sitting in front of the computer or at them. And it's funny because you seem to kind of look for things out of the way, some things maybe that are not somebody else wouldn't see or somebody else wouldn't know about. Is your upbringing there in Alabama part of that? Or is it just you're thinking, trying to figure out, hey, I don't think anybody's going to hit this? What's your thought process?
I'm more of a pattern driven guy. I'm really not a hole sitter unless it's like the tail race or something like that. And even at the tail race, there's different, structures up there, like isolated boulders that I've found over the years.
Hmm.
That's, very key to find out of the way than something obvious like a real trap or a edge of a dam, if you know what I mean. But running a pattern on the Elite Series is the key to success for me. You know, if you
You
don't
know,
have it dialed in during a tournament, then you're not going to, in my opinion, you make your own luck a lot of times by figuring out that one piece of the puzzle and run with it. And if you don't have that pattern established during the Elite Series, then it's not going to be good for you. So being around here on Lake, this lake, all the lakes in Alabama, besides a few of them, they're very pattern driven lakes, and it's kind of made me a pattern fisherman since I've been 10 years old. Watching my dad and stuff like that. So that's been in my wheelhouse. The past couple of years, Lake Series places that we been to, because they've all set up as a pattern for most places.
well, and knowing those patterns is critical. It's a little bit of like I always tell people, fishing's a biology lesson. Hot, where are the fish at? When it gets cold, where are they at? If you got current, where are they at? That's really kind of a biology lesson. And I apologize that phone rang behind us. I'll tell you what, it's funny. I'm getting rid of this phone that sits behind me, and there's a reason for it. That phone call probably was somebody saying, "You got any minnows? You got any dew worms?" On Google, they have Wired to Fish, and that's where I work there, and they had it as a bait shop. So I hardly ever answer the bloody thing. And it seems like whenever I get ready to do an interview, that's when it rings, right? Hey, you got any minnows? Nope. I'm sorry. I just ran into the last handful. I just got rid of them. But anyway, I apologize for that.
Hey,
This.
I think Terry Google's got us as a bicycle shop.
Oh, really?
So
Really?
can you imagine that one?
Well, guess what? I called them because I said, you guys got this messed up, right? Well, it cost me $600 to remove it. So I'm better off just removing the phone, right? Just get rid of the phone.
Absolutely.
They just call to go to blank air. You know, William, you have been integral in a lot of people's success, not only in Will's, but in a lot of other people's success. I talk to people all the time who talk about your products, who talk about you, and what kind of a person you are. And I think that sheds a light on what Will has become, is the fact that number one, you're a great man and, a very kind man.
That, Terry.
And it's funny because as we reminisce, getting ready to set this thing up, we talked about how long ago it was when I first met Will. And then when he goes to the classic. Of course, you and I were talking one time at the classic and talking about, man, this kid's going to be all right. And then back and forth while he was doing well at that particular classic, and I could just tell in your voice and I could tell in your heart how proud of Will you are. And I think that's something that you just can't replace. I remember coaching my son playing baseball, and he'd get a hit or something, and it was like me getting a hit, except
Oh,
better,
absolutely.
except better. It
Oh,
was better, yeah.
absolutely.
And I know you have to walk a fine line sometimes because people think you're prejudiced or biased or whatever. Guess what? We are as dads.
Oh, no doubt. It just excites me to watch his accomplishments because he's done things that I've never been able to do. So he lets me live my life's dream through him. And,
Right.
it's just a blessing. I mean, the big man has really blessed us. And, we kind of give him all the credit because it all belongs to him anyway.
Right.
So,
Right.
you
Well,
know, Will has done he's done a fabulous job with what we gave him to fish with and learn how to deal with people. And I mean, he's taught me a lot of stuff. So it's like I said, it's a blessing.
Well, you mirror him in a lot of ways, just from my vantage point at 50,000 foot level, is that you guys are a lot of like very soft spoken, not loud, not obnoxious, and that to me is what we need more in our sport right now. I think that they're loud and obnoxious has kind of gone away a little bit. And now you're watching people who just perform. And I put Will in that group. Will, talk to me a little bit about sponsorships. Who you got on board, and what are your key things that you got going right now, and tell me a little bit about how you ended up with some of the sponsorships you have.
I've been very blessed in my short career to have the sponsors that I have. Nitro, Mercury, Bass Pro Shops, Powerhouse Lithium, and then Davis Bait Company as well.
I
That's
was fixing to say that gum.
a new one. That's the fourth one. Um, Humminbird, Minn Kota. I've been running their stuff since day one, and Nitro and Mercury. Since day one. I mean, day one. I mean, like since I've been 16 years old, when I could hook up that boat and leave the driveway without my dad. Ep.8 rods, they're a new rod company, or they've been around a little while. I got them this year. They're a great rod, very sensitive rod, and very light rod. And casking reels they're newer on the market, but they came out with some good stuff, some newer stuff this year. They got good reels. I've been fishing with them for 2 years now, and very very pleased with their product. Glad to be on all their teams. And Silicock Marine down the road there, they helped me out with the boat and stuff, and Elite Sonar, they rigged my boat in Eufaula, Alabama. Straight Up Mounts are a graph company, or a mount for the graphs and stuff. They're out of Indiana, yeah, Indiana. Joe, he's got it going on up there. So there's a few more. Big Bite Bait Company, been with them. They've been with me since day one too.
What a great family there too. Montgomery family is, they're near and dear to me, and I know now it's owned by another company, but in reality, that's a family-owned business too, to a certain extent. And
Yes,
you know,
sir. It is.
and I know in your area, your neck of the woods, William, you have a lot of relationships that have equated to partnerships, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Where you are doing one thing, somebody else is doing something else, and guess what? You guys put your heads together and come out with a product that makes it better and makes it so it works for you. And I think that that's really unheard of because a lot of people want to cover what they do. They want to put a cover over it, not show it to you till they want to let it out of the bag. And it doesn't seem that way with a group of guys down in your neck of the woods for sure.
Well, we've been real fortunate to work with some of the biggest and some of the smallest in the industry. We do a lot of tooling for companies that have their products made offshore. So we actually design a lot of products for those guys, and then they take them offshore. That's where their facilities are located, their manufacturing facilities. And some of them are really, really, really big. And we just signed on with we've got a new one for 2026 that the company's, it's an honor for us to get to work with them, but it's Hildebrandt. They've been in business since 1899, And the company that owns them now is Yakima Bait Company.
Mhm.
And Will and I both, we're really just honored to be able to work with those guys. And we're going to develop a joint venture on some spinner baits and some blades, and we really look forward to that.
You mentioned Hildebrandt. I mean, when you talk about the best spinnerbait blades and components, they're right there. They're the top.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yes,
and,
sir.
and
They're number one. I was really honored when we got that deal put together for
Yeah,
sure.
they're definitely the Cadillac of the blades. I can tell you that.
oh
And
no doubt.
another big one for me that's been there since day one is Spro and Gamakatsu. You know, Sid and all them over there, they've been great to me and my family. And you know, as a fishing angler, you could not do what we do for a living without your sponsors. No way, absolutely no way. This year I've had a good year, and after paying entry fees of whatever we had to pay, I think I've only won 25,000, and I've not missed one cut, and that's the top 10 in there as well. So you cannot do it without sponsors.
Yeah,
It's
your
just a
part,
cold truth about it.
your partners, Terry, is that's what keeps you in the game.
Yeah. And then they Circle B whitetails. It's a non-endemic of the sport. They're a hunting preserve over here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and you know anytime you can get good friends that can help you, it goes a long ways too.
Well, I can tell you this, and I'm looking at both of you right now as we end up in the end of this program. But I'm a fan of yours, and I think you guys know that. And you guys have been
Appreciate
high
that,
on
sir.
my list. It's funny, as I started to do this podcast, I wanted to talk about the positiveness in the sport. I could get on social media and browbeat people and do the things that go on. I didn't want to have any part of that. I wanted to continue to be, I'm old school as a Dickens, no doubt about it. I wanted to be somebody that was a positive light. I wanted to have people on that were a positive light. And I can't think of any two people I'd rather have on than you two guys. So a compliment to
We,
you. And
this is, we're just like you. I mean, this is the way we make our living, and we try to always look at that glass being half full. And I think that you get a better results living that way.
well, longer, I can tell you that, you're not such a flash in the pan. And
Yes,
my buddies are people that have been in the sport forever. I kidded around with somebody yesterday, and I said there was as much controversy 25 years ago as there is today on this in the sport. No doubt about it. It's just we have social media now where that stuff gets reported like instantly.
that's
And my
correct.
feeling was, like Ray Scott used to talk about Bo Dowd, an Olympic swimmer, and I laugh about it every time he does it. And when I heard that, he could say anything he wanted to say, and people believed it, right? Because there wasn't any way to do any kind of a fact checking or anything like that. It made it fun. If fishing is not fun, none of us would do it.
That's
So
right.
I again appreciate you guys more from a personal standpoint than anything else. And if I
Thank
can ever
you.
do anything for you here, you got it. And thank you for being with us today on
Yes,
all
sir.
that.
We appreciate you having us as a guest.
Thank you, Mr. Terry.